lying, you might like to try the same. Just lie down somewhere in your room. And we'll be doing this for maybe 15 minutes or so, just relaxing before we start the meditation. So if you could maybe move up, make a bit of space for those who are trying to fit in. There's a nice big space down in the corner here. So just close your eyes, and I'd recommend resting your knees together, feet maybe a foot or so apart, but rest your knees one against the other to give you extra support. And let your hands, well, if your hands are interlocked, fingers are interlocked, I would recommend releasing them. Otherwise we can build tension in our fingers, in our hands, unintentionally. So just relaxing into the floor. Just allowing your back to sink, as it were, into the floor. Imagine your back becoming heavy. Imagine the whole of your body becoming heavy. And then bring your attention to your face. And just see if you can find any tensions there. Hopefully not, but if there are any, just try to release them. So if your brow is furrowed, then just let it go. Allow the area around your eyes to soften, and your mouth. And if you notice that you're clenching your jaw, well, just release it. So that the whole of your face feels soft and relaxed. And allowing that sense of relaxation to spread all the way around your head. The crown of your head, back of your head, into your neck, down into your shoulders. Just making sure that your shoulders are not tense. If they're lifted, just let them fall down towards the floor. And feeling that relaxation drifting down through your arms, through your elbows, wrists, right into your hands, to the very fingertips. And then bringing your attention back up again to the shoulder blades and your upper back. Just noting if there are any tensions there. And allowing your awareness to dissolve them if you find any. allowing your chest to open, as if the rib cage falls to either side of your body. And then bringing your attention down, lower into your back, lower into your spine, allowing that area also just to relax and become heavy. And if you notice any tension in your stomach, if you're hanging on to your stomach, well, just release it. Let it go. And allowing this relaxation just to drift further down through your body, down through the pelvic region, through your thighs, through your knees, down through your shins, ankles, into your feet, to the very tips of your toes. So that everything is soft and relaxed. Now, bring your attention, your awareness onto the breath. Just for these next few moments, feeling the breath coming in and going out. And then in your own time, open your eyes. And when you're ready, roll over onto your left-hand side so that you're facing the shrine. And then slowly get up. But make sure you don't come up too quickly to avoid a blood rush to the head, which causes faintness. And then set yourself up for the meditation. If you need more cushions, there are plenty over here, so please just get them.
Just get to check.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, well, welcome everybody from me again. Welcome to this class anyway, this particular part of it. My name's Devamitra, and as you can see, I'm going to be teaching you this evening. We're going to do a session of the mindfulness of breathing. So we'll do that in a few moments, and then there'll be the tea break, and after the tea break, I will give a talk. We're doing a series on perspectives, personal perspectives of meditation, etc. So we shall be talking about that when you come back in after the tea. And then we'll finish with a short meditation at the end. So just set yourself up, make sure you're sitting comfortably, and we'll do the mindfulness of breathing. So just settling down into your posture. Taking just a few moments to make sure that you really are comfortable. Feeling the support that the floor or the chair gives you. And just allowing your mind to focus on the breath. Just experiencing the breath as it comes in and as it leaves the body. The mindfulness of breathing. while still sitting as for meditation, letting go of all conscious effort. Just sitting. So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, cup of tea. So, if you'd like to go through to the mural room, or if you prefer it, you can stay here and sit quietly if that's what you wish. And we come back in here in roughly just under half an hour's time. So, welcome back. Are there any, does it look like anybody else is going to be joining us, or that's it, is it? A quick check. Okay, so I'm going to speak about my personal perspective on meditation. That's what I've been asked to do, so I'm going to do it. And I was thinking about this earlier and wondering how to begin. So I decided to tell you a rather... I decided to tell you a story, something that happened to me very recently. And that is that I was out for a walk one day in Victoria Park, which if you live around here you'll know it's just about 10 minutes walk from here. Very nice park. And I was walking with a friend, a young friend, and as we were walking along, well, past the lake there, if any of you, well, those of you who do know it, there's a kind of broad avenue and road where sometimes cyclists cycle and lots of people are walking along, and this was lunchtime and it was a very nice day. So as we were walking along, a young lad came along on, I don't quite know how you describe this bike these days. When I was younger they were called motocross bikes. Motocross was a sort of like cross-country motorcycling sport, and the bikes that they use make a heck of a racket. And the lad on this bike had his girlfriend in the back. He probably was no more than about 15, I should think. And of course he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing, and he was coming towards us and he was making a lot of noise. And I turned to my companion. I said, "Can he do something?" We started talking about it because he was pulling his face as well. I mean, everybody was. It was such a terrible noise. But anyway, he turned off the road and went up onto the canal. So we forgot about him and got on with our walk. And as we came, if you know Victoria Park, you come to the first set of gates. Not the big gates where you come in and out on Approach Road, but a sort of gate which separates the other half of that park. And as we reached that point, he came back off the canal on his bike. And people were getting out of his way, and he suddenly accelerated. He was riding really quite fast, and the noise was awful. So I turned to my young companion, and by this time we'd been joined by somebody else. I said, "Can you do something about this?" And no, I'm not going to do anything about that. So I thought, "Oh, all right, then. Well, I'll do something about it." So I tried to block his way. I stood in the way and made it difficult for him to get through. He had to slow down, and he did. And he did come through, but I was looking daggers at him, I'm afraid to say. And you can imagine. And they were looking daggers back at me, the young lad and his girlfriend, as they went through. And then he stopped, so I started to go over to him. Now, I have to say, I hadn't thought what I was going to do at this point. So my mind froze. And it was one, I mean, usually I know what to do, but on this occasion my mind completely froze and I didn't know what to do. So I just said, "F off." How sensible is that? When I've told two people who know me extremely well this little story, they both burst into uncontrollable laughter. I mean, they were in fits for ages, because if you know me at all, that's the last thing on earth you'd ever expect me to say in any circumstances whatsoever. Anyway, not surprisingly, this antagonized the young man. And he... So I walked over towards him. I was going to say something else. a bit more. I wasn't very happy at this opening, by the way, but I was about to say something else to him, and he revved the bike so that he couldn't hear what I said, and just looked at me. And he looked as if he's going to turn on me, but I had two young, rather large friends behind me, and he knew it was a no-win situation and just went off. Okay, so that's the story. My two young friends were so impressed, and an older lady, a cyclist who'd stopped to watch this exciting incident, waved and smiled at me. Somebody else came up on a bike. I said, "Oh, thank goodness, someone said something. I was thinking of doing something myself, but I didn't. And but you did. Well done, you." And I didn't feel at all happy about what I'd done. I really didn't. So why is that? Maybe you can guess already. But now the word that I use is I have hardly ever used it in my life. 5 years ago, I was asked by Devamitra, who used to be a theatre director, if I'd like to be in a play. And I used to be an actor when I was younger. And I said, well, okay, show me the script and I'll tell you. So he showed me the script, and it was a new play, and they'd been working with this writer for some time. And, like all writers of our time, they're like one of the important things for writers these days, whether they're writing plays or novels or whatever, is authenticity. Same with film and television, authenticity. So the F word gives you authenticity. So this script was peppered with the F word. Now, I'd never used it on a stage, and I certainly wasn't going to start. But the character that I had been asked to play only had to use the word twice. So I had a quick word with Devamitra, and I said, look, do you think you could get him to change that for something else? And he eventually agreed. And actually he agreed that it was an improvement in the end. But so I had that kind of sensitivity to the kind of language that I used with this young fellow. So shortly afterwards I went to Wales to see a long-standing friend of mine. We've known each other almost for 50 years, and he's the president of this centre. And we talked a lot during that week, and one of the things we talked about was this little incident. And I said, look, he said, I said, I've been practicing meditation for almost 50 years. I've done my daily meditation practice faithfully. I did a 9-month solitary retreat when those who knew me said they felt I came back significantly differently, for the better. I've hastened to add. I then went through quite severe cancer treatment for quite a while. And I felt, well, that brought me very close to the fact of my own impermanence. And for quite a while it wasn't clear whether my cancer had spread, whether it was terminal or whatever, but I was forced to face it in a way that I'd never had to do before. And that experience was, without a doubt, one of the most, it was another turning point in my life. I felt that what had happened during my long retreat had deepened. So I had all that behind me. So some young teenage kid makes a racket in Victoria Park. I feel indignant and behave in a way which I felt ashamed about almost immediately. And yet that still happens. And I was puzzling over this. I mean, I knew, and I asked him, why did this happen? And he knew perfectly well, and I knew perfectly well actually, but it was all, I already understood the answer. But the answer is that it's very, very difficult to break bad habits. We can sort of erode them slowly. We can slowly overcome them, but to completely overcome them is very difficult indeed. So you might be wondering at this stage, what on earth has this got to do with meditation and my perspective on it? Well, as far as I'm concerned, it has a lot to do with it. I've been meditating for just under 40 years, as I say, and I've been on many retreats. I've spent over 3 years of my life in solitude meditating, and yet I can behave like that. Admittedly, it's not generally characteristic of me. It was just one of those things, like a sort of something which just, a blast from the past, if you like, something that just suddenly erupted in me. So, what did that mean? Did it mean that I just wasted 49 years of my life meditating? Well, of course, I didn't think that at all. I mean, I knew perfectly well that was not true. But it does raise those kind of questions. What are you doing when you meditate? Why do you meditate? And my own teacher famously said that the purpose of meditation is not to have good meditations, but to transform yourself. And I've always taken that very, very seriously. I quite often quote it when I'm teaching. So that's why we meditate. And yet, after 49 years, I could do something like that. Well, of course, you start thinking, well, how much worse would I have been without the meditation? Well, that's one side of it. But for me, it highlights the fact that it points to a number of issues that many people have with meditation. For instance, I've heard many people say over the years, whenever I sit down to meditate, my mind just wanders. It never seems to get me better. I never seem to make any progress. I hope that's not your experience, by the way, but many people have had that sort of experience, have talked it over with me, and all I ever say is, well, just keep doing it. That doesn't always convince, by the way, and it's not necessarily the best answer, but it's what I sincerely believe with meditation. Just keep doing it. On the 9-month retreat that I did a lot of meditation, and a lot of the time there was thoughts, background thoughts, the thoughts which form the backdrop to our minds, the thoughts which we all have and which are very difficult to get out of our minds. So even after all that time, this still happened to me. But those 49 years were not wasted, because I have changed. I would say I changed quite radically during that period. But it's a change which has happened very, very slowly, very, very subtly. You change very, very slowly and subtly. And the effect of meditation is a very slow, subtle process. You may go on a retreat and feel that nothing's happened on your retreat, or maybe you do manage to gain some concentration and feel in a more elevated state, but very, very quickly it goes. This is the experience of many, many people. So why does this happen? I think to come back to the issue of why are there these persistent thoughts that we have to deal with, which trouble us, you have to bear in mind that the real purpose of meditation is to transform yourself. Now, some people are very gifted at meditation. I'm not one of them. I never have been. I've always faithfully done my practice, and I've had some wonderful moments in meditation, no question, and on retreat. But they tend to be relatively rare. And that's because I'm trying to change very, very deep, ingrained, conditioned habits, and that takes time. But something else which is really important to understand about this is that sometimes people learn meditation outside of any broader context. Now, within the context of the London Buddhist Centre, we don't do that. We teach meditation very much within the context of the Buddhist tradition. The practices that we teach here are all Buddhist practices, and they work. If you stick at them, they will work slowly but surely. But we don't just teach meditation, as you heard from Garavavasi. She kept using this word connection, which is interesting. Why she's doing that is because we know that if you can meditate with other people, that helps. It helps to come together and meditate together. It helps to go on retreat together and meditate together. It helps to know the other people that are practicing meditation. You can get to know them a little bit. You can share your experiences. You can become friends. And again, this is something that we encourage very, very much within our movement, and our movement is much, much bigger than the London Buddhist Centre. The London Buddhist Centre is just one centre. It's probably the largest centre that we have running in the UK, but in India we've got many, many centres, and the classes that we run there involve hundreds of people very often. So we have this quite widely developed community which spreads beyond the LBC to other parts of this country and abroad. And so many, many people are involved in this. And so we connect with each other. I have many friends in India. I've spent quite a bit of time teaching in India, but that's a bit by the by. But we try to get to know each other, because friendship with those who are trying to achieve the same goal as you are can be very, very supportive indeed. So we emphasize that. We emphasize, as Buddhist tradition always does as well, not just the practice of meditation, but the practice of ethics. So that's also important. I seriously broke one of my precepts when I confronted that young man the other week, but that was a particularly bad lapse for me. But I was haunted by it afterwards. I couldn't forget it. It really troubled me. I reflected upon it a lot, which is why I discussed it with my friend in Wales, to help me clarify my own mind, get a better understanding of what it was I'd really done, try to sort of unpick a bit further some of the deeper ingrained habits of my mind, my conditioning, if you like, so that as I meditate, the process of meditation will slowly change. And I do believe that that's happened over those 49 years, which is one of the reasons why I say the important thing about meditation is just to do it and keep on doing it. But give yourself all the other supports you need. The support of going on retreat. Try to get to know some of the people who come here. Consider, well, what do you do in your lives on a daily basis which might affect your experience when you sit down to meditate? For example, I think that temperamentally I'm what Buddhism would call a hate type. I can irritation and impatience are some of my vices, but they've been attenuated over the years. I'm not as impatient as I was when I was young. I'm not as prone to irritation, to irritation or impatience as I used to be. Putting it in more positive terms, I'm much friendlier. I'm much more generous. I'm much kinder, I hope, and so on. But this is all part of our ethical practice, seeking opportunities to act in an ethical way. And by ethics, I don't just mean avoiding doing certain things, but engaging in positive things, like giving in some way or other. Giving is such an important practice. Generosity is such an important practice in Buddhism. In fact, you could even say it's where Buddhist practice begins. There are many, many different ways in which we can give. We can give of our experience. We can give of our time. Of course, we can give material things. We can give money if that's what's needed, and so on and so forth. But every time you give, you go beyond yourself. You break out of this tight little knot of me, which can be so stifling, and which causes people like me, even at the age of 73, even after 49 years of practicing Buddhism, to tell someone to F off. But hopefully that won't happen again in this life. I can't remember the last time it happened, if it happened at all. It certainly hasn't happened in my in recent years. I can't think of another time it's happened, actually. I probably did that when I was younger, but I can't recall any instances of it. So one of the wonderful things about practicing the Dharma, and that of course includes practicing meditation, is that you get to know yourself better. When you sit down to meditate, in a sense, you're confronted by your own mind, by your mental states, and they're your mental states. They're not anybody else's. If you're feeling upset, well, you have to take responsibility for that. It's not a very popular thing to say these days, but it's true. You know, if somebody behaves in an insulting way to me, and I react, or I get indignant, as I did with this young fella, well, that's my mind that's reacting. It's me that's reacting. I have to take responsibility for that, and not worry about what other people do. Of course, sometimes the things that other people do don't help us, and I'm not saying that we should ignore that, but we do have to take responsibility for our own mental states if we want to change them. If I want to finally overcome my indignation, I've got to stop telling people to F off. I've got to stop reacting blindly. It doesn't help me if I do. If I start to feel indignant because someone's behaving in an antisocial fashion, I need to immediately ask myself, why? You know, why am I getting upset about this? Is that helping me? Is it helping anybody else? Probably not. But if I could have only responded to this young fella in a sort of empathic way, you know, said something like, for example, I see you're having a lot of fun, but you know, have you considered how this might be affecting other people? Something along those lines, acknowledging the fact that he was having fun. I mean, he probably never thought about it. He's just seeing people scatter in front of him, which is probably fun when you're 15. In a certain sort of way, I'm sure he wouldn't have, you know, deliberately run anyone down or anything of that sort. He didn't. He seemed a harmless young fellow, really. But you know, in the heat of that moment, I didn't do that. But this is the sort of thing we got to learn from, which is why I'm recounting this story to you. Anyway, coming back to the issues, the problems that we face in meditation. Very often people, when they find, for example, that, well, they feel that the meditation practices that they're doing don't work, they might seek a different method. They might seek a different teacher. But really, when it comes down to it, there's not much you can say when you are teaching meditation. Of course, we have to explain the basic techniques. And you may, and in fact probably will, have issues come up that you need a bit of help with, that you want to explore a bit or talk about. That's perfectly understandable. But this is just part of the process. And this is one of the reasons why we encourage connection, as Devamitra put it, making connections with others, developing friendship around those connections. When it comes to teaching meditation, all you can really do is try to encourage and inspire. When I was right at the beginning of my meditation career, to use not exactly the right expression, but to the time at which I began to meditate seriously, I went to a retreat. It was not a Triratna retreat. It was a Zen sesshin, and it was being led by a Japanese monk called Zengo. And it was a week long, and all we did was zazen. And zazen there's not very much to say about it. It's just like what we do when we just sit. Or it might involve watching the breath. It can be a form of the mindfulness of breathing. But in this session, in this sesshin, I should say, Zengo had us getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and we'd meditate throughout the day. We would do 40-minute sessions, or it might have been 30 minutes, I can't remember, throughout the day, with just very, very short periods of kinhin, that is to say, silent walking, very mindful walking. And he would just sit there when we were doing these sessions together in full lotus, perfectly calm. And it was almost as if this calmness radiated out from him. He looked as if he really was very deeply absorbed in meditation. I never saw him move once in the whole course of the week. And we were in that shrine room a lot, most of the day in fact. And if there was the slightest movement in the shrine room, and this is the only thing he ever taught, he'd just simply say, "Don't move," very sternly. We don't teach like that here, you may have noticed. But I never forgot that. Partly because I was so impressed by the stillness which seemed to emanate from him, which I would very much have liked to have developed myself. But it seemed to me to be, it hit right at the core of meditation practice. If you can sit still, you can achieve a lot. Sometimes it's very difficult to sit still, and I'm not suggesting here and now that you never move, but try and remember that. If you sit, if you can just resist those odd moments when you want to move, or you've got an itch you've got to scratch, or just resist it. Experience the itch. It doesn't go on forever. They stop relatively quickly, actually. You just let the itch build and let it dissolve again. Very simple. So hard to do. So lots of little things like that. Just a slight temptation to rustle. Just do something. But no, resist it. Try to learn to resist it, if you can. Of course, if you're sitting very uncomfortably, well, sometimes you just have to do something about that. But usually it's not necessary. So that's a very, very quick summary of my perspective on meditation. I hope at least some of it will be of use to you. But anyway, I've talked for probably far too long already. Time we did some more meditation. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to just sit, and I'm going to ask you, if you can, to not move. I'm not going to come around and beat you with a big Zen master stick if you do move, but just see what you can do. It won't be for long. It'll be just under 20 minutes, so probably not even that. So it's not a long time to sit perfectly still. Just see if on this one occasion we can all sit here without moving, and see what you can learn from that, and see if you can bring that sort of experience to your daily meditation practice, if indeed you have one, or at least whenever you come here to meditate, or when you go on retreat. Okay. So set yourselves up. Make sure you're sitting really comfortably. This is your last chance saloon. And we're not going to try and do anything other than just sit. so you see what's possible. It's hardly a movement for close on 20 minutes. However, that's all there's time for this evening. So I wish you a safe and pleasant journey back to wherever it is you came from this evening, and hopefully we'll see you again next week or any other time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.